Yo, what's up? Check it out. It's your boy DJ L7 now. I'm gonna be changing the thumbnail, but in the meantime, right, I have a very special guest on tonight. There's a lot of talk about nuclear stuff going on, and I'm actually let my guest introduce herself while I change the thumbnail. So go ahead.
Huh, okay. I am Marilyn. I have been involved in nuclear power for the
Is
last,
that right?
I don't know, call it 30 years. And mostly, I've really tried to work locally, think globally, but act locally. And I've been working on Indian Point. However, given our current state of affairs, I can really see that's no longer adequate. We all need to continue to work locally, but we've got to do more together. And nuclear power really comes under that setting. It's a zombie. Nuclear power is a zombie. It's expensive. It costs a ton of money to build a new plant, and every dime that is spent on nuclear power, you could even say nuclear research if you wanted to.
Can I just ask a couple questions just to clear things up for my audience right quick?
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so first of all, you said you're involved with Indian Point. Some people might know what that is, some people might
Ah,
not know what it is. There's
that's
a lot
true.
of new
Yeah.
kids, right? They don't know where Indian Point is. Maybe it's in Indiana, they don't know, right?
And
It's actually
how
New
would they?
York.
Thank you.
Also, if you could also tell me a little bit more about your past, like how you got him. You said you've been in it for 30 years. Was it personal history with you in Indian Point, or like, and if you could tell us how you got started. So go ahead. What is
Okay.
Indian Point, and why?
That's a good
What is that
starting
all
point.
about? Yeah,
Thank
what
you.
is that? Go ahead.
Indian Point is a nuclear power plant in the Hudson River Valley. And it was one of the first ones built and very problematic. There were three units there. One of them had to close down because it couldn't be made safe. The other two had been operated on and off. And now they're finally closed for good. Took a long time and a lot of work and many, many activists and almost near misses is what I would say. That's what finally got enough people involved in knowing how dangerous this was. Very close to the city. It's not 50 miles from Times Square in New York City. And if something happened there, it would just, the city would be contaminated along with, 200 miles around the plant. So it's very poorly located. And the one of the planes that hit the World Trade Center flew right over Indian Point. The terrorists decided that they would do the World Trade Center because that was a more symbolic target. And they also thought Indian Point would be very well guarded, which it was not and no longer needs to be now, but it's never been adequately protected
But
from
so quick question.
terrorists.
Is this Indian Point thing, it sounds like it's two things, right? Well, is it really so much about the location of Indian Point, right? Or is it really more about the also the nuclear? Is nuclear power something that you're against, or is it just the Indian Point nuclear power plant?
Well, the location of Indian Point was really important for the political aspect. The governor wanted to close Indian Point. He felt it was unsafe, and we worked a long time with him and with other politicians to make that clear. It's unsafe.
Which governor was
However,
that? Pataki or Cuomo or
yes,
which one?
well, no, Pataki did an important report called the Witt Report, and that showed just how bad it was. And then we got Cuomo. We when Cuomo came in and he did something none of the other I don't know how much detail you want to go into here, but I'll just say quickly, Cuomo did something no other state in the union has done. What Cuomo did was he started a special branch, a separate agency, dedicated with lawyers and really smart people dedicated to closing Indian Point because he felt it was so dangerous. And they took on this very big, very powerful company called Entergy. They're the ones that ended up owning Indian Point. And in court, there was lots of fights, lots of political stuff that went on, lots of court battles, and finally, natural gas came along, and they were only making $1 million a day.
Okay,
Frankly,
so you're not
for that.
against nuclear energy in concept. You're just against it in this particular case. And
No,
it's
that's
good.
not true. That's not
Okay.
true. I am against. I should get to it quicker, I guess. But anyway, they sold Indian Point, and we all rejoiced. However, in regard to nuclear power in general, if I can speak about that a bit, it's a waste of time and money. And the plants are just zombie plants, propped up by taxpayer money. If you look at what's going on across the country, you will see all of these companies asking, begging, pleading for money from the government because the cost of gas has gone up. People are now a lot more concerned about greenhouse gases, which we should be. And so a lot of states are now paying extra money to these existing nuclear power plants to keep operating, saying, "Oh, well, it's a part of our carbon reduction budget." But what they don't think about is, first of all, the waste that is produced. It's toxic, deadly, lethal for 240 million years, and we have no place to put it. We have no policy for dealing with nuclear waste. And it's ridiculous to say that, but it's absolutely true. And so you keep making this waste when you could make energy cheaper, and it keeps piling up at all of the reactors around the country. And people are saying, "Oh, I don't want it, ship it away." Mm-hmm. Who are you shipping it to? Shipping it to black and brown communities that don't want it either, but don't have much of a voice. So there's a lot of environmental justice concerned with nuclear power. I first got involved with nuclear power. I was elementary school librarian. That's a really nice job, by the way, working with kids and talking about the environment and doing a lot of other things. But I saw all of these kids walking through my door all new and shiny and bright. And I said, "What are we handing over to them? What are we giving them? We are giving them a toxic legacy that nobody knows what to do with." And we just keep piling it up, piling it up, piling it up. It's not what grown-ups do. In kindergarten you learn to clean up your own mess, hold hands when you walk across the street, which is taking care of other people. And that's not what happens with nuclear power. So we have all of this toxic waste accumulating, and we're wasting money. We're wasting money because of what I want to call the lost opportunity. There's a lost opportunity cost when you go into nuclear because you end up spending so much more per kilowatt hour. And that's, I don't know how many people in the audience look at their electricity bill, but that's how you get billed. You can look at it. It might be 17 cents a kilowatt hour, or it might be 10 cents, depends on where you are in the country and the company that is delivering your service. But why would we be paying more for electricity than we have to? Why would we be taking on a kind of energy that
Wait.
takes a long time to build? You've got
Quick
a
question.
question.
So,
Mhm.
you were around during the time when when the plants were running. Am I correct?
Was what?
You were around when the plants were running, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Did the electricity rates go up during that time?
The electricity rates were pretty steady during that time.
Okay.
It was, and there's a myth that circulates in my neighborhood and in New York City that Indian Point contributed 25% of the electricity for the area, but it never did. The city uses about 13,000 megawatts on an average day, and there were two units at Indian Point, and they each generated 2,000 megawatts. So you can see that even with both of them working, there's no way they can get up to a fourth of a 25% of the electricity in the area. So that's one of the lies that the industry likes to tell.
I know. Well, it's they're really interested in selling the product, so I do take a skeptical approach. Now, the thing
Hmm.
is that I've been back and forth on this issue because honestly, I'm not against technology, but
Hmm.
the thing is that, what you did say about like the waste building up, that is, we don't have a very good record on our trash or waste disposal. So I would want to, right, before any person talking about nuclear, I do think that's a very good, valid concern. And so right now, what kind of um, so you went through the process. How did you guys actually successfully get it shut down? Or
Well,
I guess it was just
it
totally
shut
taken care of.
down.
Okay.
The bean counters shut it down. The company was not making enough money. They were not happy with $1 million a day. They wanted their $2 million a day profit. And when natural gas came in, the price of everybody's energy went down, including the wholesale price. And so they decided to sell. It was a Southern company. Entergy's a Southern company, and they wanted to go back down south where they were not so carefully regulated and so carefully watched. So they sold out what they called Entergy Northeast. Business decision, really. Now, I will say that those of us who were activists like to take some credit for annoying them enough that they finally didn't want to fool anymore around here. There were court cases and demonstrations. One time we all dressed up in a hazmat suit and said it one Christmas and walked around saying, Entergy's a terrible neighbor. They're getting coal in their stocking.
So one thing is, you said that you had,
You had to have visuals for stuff like that for the press in
yeah,
those days.
yeah, I bet, right? But you said that recently, we hear about all this, like, Russia possible war, things like that, things shutting down. What happens if, is there a chance that they might like try to refire up those generators?
At
Because you said,
Indian Point, or where are
because you
you
were talking
talking
about
about?
EPA money coming in and stuff like that, right? Also, one thing you mentioned was, so do you think there's a chance that they would ever try to restart Indian Point, those
Oh, they
nuclear power
can't.
plants? Oh, they can't. It's just shut.
No,
It can't. They can't. Okay, they ripped
it's
it all
too
out.
far gone.
Okay,
However,
interesting.
what you're saying is what Gretchen Whitmer in Wisconsin wants to do, and it's what the governor in California did. He signed a paper. There's a reactor there called Songs, and 5 years and more, people worked for a plan to close that reactor, and it was just on the verge of closing. And the governor would like to run for president. We all know that. He doesn't want any blackouts in his state. Nobody does. So he's trying to extend the life of that plant. Whitmer's doing the same thing. Lots of state money, which is your money, my money, taxpayer money, give the company all the money they need. However, there's a whole thing about licensing. There's a Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, and so you don't just snap your fingers and close a plant or open a plant.
Yeah,
Uh,
that makes a lot of sense to me, honestly. If the market is going to sell natural gas with energy at a cheaper rate, and then it doesn't make sense, like, why are you buying the technology if it's not going to be, so it seems like we're kind of like, it does seem like a possible money grab. It seems like it's, honestly, everything's a money grab nowadays. It's really sad.
good, good,
We got to
good
investigate.
characterization. Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, all right. So, interesting. So the thing is that what is uh what is the current fight that you guys have now? Because you guys call yourself the Indian Point. What's the name of the organization again? Indian Point.
Uh, I'm with the Indian Point Safe Energy Coalition,
Okay. So
and
who are there other
it
like,
was one of the first. It was one of the first organizations that were that that started, and we've been working on this for a long time.
okay. You ever hear of these groups called the Lucians?
Um, no, I'm sorry, I haven't. I'd like to know about it. We
They
need
l-
solutions.
well actually right there, I hang with them somewhat, right? I hang with all the groups, to tell you the truth. I work with Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Greens, Libertarians. I have the only third-party independent candidate forums here in New York City, and also I have the emails of every single senator, House of Representatives, person that I've emailed them. So the nuclear power thing, the Larouchians, they actually were part of the SDI program back in Reagan's era, and now they're actually really promoting the hell out of. They love nuclear energy.
Yeah.
So one thing that they say is that there's, with all the computers going up, that we're gonna need more electricity to push those things. But I think that right now you brought up some really good points right now, right? I'm not trying to sabotage the Larouchians at all, right? So please don't take it that way. But
No, I'm not.
if
It's
no,
it's
not
an argument
right.
that you hear.
No, I mean I have questions now because you brought up some good points, right? The thing is that, right? If nuclear energy is such the boon that we think it is, or such as the Larouchians say it is, right? Not, I still love a lot of things that they do, but this is a good critique right here. Why did Indian Point fail? Right? If it's such a good creator of energy, right, then it would still be going strong. So if it wasn't a good investment back then, what makes it a good investment now? I think those are great questions. I don't see any reason for, the gas energy or the natural gas energy, whatever energy, right, comes out, right, could affect the market. The nuclear energy might not be cost efficient, right? You said the prices stayed about the same. They didn't go up, they didn't go down, right?
For
So there
quite a few
was,
years. And then fracking came along. And fracking is really what closed Indian Point because that made their profit so much less. I need to make another point here, too. Um, how much does it cost to generate electricity? With nuclear power, nobody ever considers the cost of storing the waste. How do you store waste for 240 million years? How do people 500 years down the road know how dangerous it is and what it is? And how do you figure that in? Because that should be internalized as a cost of the electricity. And it's not. People just ignore it. There's a whole, if you're going to compare different kinds of energy in their production, you have to look at their life cycle. What does it cost for that energy to come to market? Coal's a rock. You can just burn it. It doesn't take a lot of processing. Nuclear power is not that way. You got to take the uranium out of the ground. It's got to be processed. It's got to be transported. It's got to be processed in a lot of other ways. And I'll tell you right now, where it comes out of the ground really does a lot of damage. First of all, to the people there. You can talk to any of the Shoshone or Navajo out west, and they say, if you want to help us, don't build any more nuclear plants because they have tons of literally tailings that is left over from the mining. You just need a little tiny piece of a big amount of the rocks. And so what do they do with the others? They pile it up. It is still radioactive. And children play on that. And the wind carries it, and a lot of people get sick. There's
you can
a
actually look up
Navajo,
a story, right? Yeah. There's
yeah,
actually a 13-year-old who built a reactor in his backyard. Dead
yep,
serious. Oh, you know
I
about
saw
that?
that. I
Yeah,
saw
yo,
that.
like honestly, like it's available. You know what I mean? Like science just makes things possible.
Yep. But I want to tell you this Navajo story.
Okay,
It's
go ahead.
short.
I mean, yeah, I'm
Um,
sure they're tearing up the ground, looking for the stuff.
oh, oh, the Navajos. It's not even a story. It's just a saying. They'll say you may meet old Navajo who were coal miners, but you will not meet old Navajo who were nuclear miners, uranium miners, because they die. They die from the contamination and from what happens to their body and their lungs from breathing that dust. So, doing the processing of that's a whole other story that you might want to go into that sometime. It's looking underneath, peeling away the layers of the onion, looking underneath. You will not get a simple solution to a complicated problem.
So,
And
what is your group working on nowadays? Are there like plants you guys are trying to shut down or stuff like that?
well, I've been working on that more. I'm working on our group is still very much attached to Indian Point and making sure that the decommissioning is safe. There's an elementary school and a gas pipeline right near that reactor. So that's an ongoing thing. But I'll say New York has a model for the country. We have that's called a decommissioning oversight board, and what they do is they meet, and they really, there are lots of people from different agencies there, and they really are holding the company. Holtec is the company, and they have a terrible reputation. They want to dump radioactive water into the Hudson, among other things. But anyway, right now the problem is our own Department of Energy that has, I don't know, $16 million to spend on something called um, CIS, which is a centralized interim storage. And they're saying, oh, it's not fair for all these people that where you're closing nuclear power plants to have to keep all that waste on site. They never had to do that. We have to ship it off. And what does that say about the other people you're shipping it to? What does that say about their neighborhoods? Frankly, my feeling is that you got the good out of it for 30, 40 years. So now it's time for you to step up and take care of what's left over. There are very strict rules about all that theoretically when they're enforced. But the people in New Mexico and New Mexico are really fighting centralized interim storage right now. They don't want it. They don't want it. And the government has just launched this whole big plan to try to sell it to them. And it's not the first time it's happened. So I don't think anybody's going to buy it. And when they don't, where are we? We still don't have a plan. I don't know. Do you know about Yucca Mountain, or would your listeners like to know about Yucca Mountain? It was really before your time, but it's still going on.
Actually, that's why my channel's here. Yes, I would like to learn about it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, um, there was a lot of political stuff that goes on that went on. I'll save you the the details of all of that. But what it ended up was with a bill called Screw Nevada. Theoretically, the Department of Energy looked around at different places, but there was too much opposition. So Nevada's not a very powerful state. And so up came the Screw Nevada bill, and that's what they did. They said the depository would be built there. I've been to, I've been there. I've been to Yucca Mountain, and it's beautiful, beautiful desert country, high desert, and it's up on. You can't say it's up on a hill, but it's sort of up on a knoll. And they built a tunnel, a U-shaped tunnel that goes all the way through there for nuclear waste. Nevada stopped it, and periodically you'll find people that want to bring it back. That's happening now, but it's just one big empty tunnel that's there. And you have to think there are two things about that you need to know. First of all, how are you going to get the waste there? You're shipping high level radioactive waste. Do you want to put it on trucks on the road and go through cities and neighborhoods? You can't get to Nevada on a barge or a boat. So, transportation is a huge problem, and it's a dangerous issue. And who goes first? Oh, take my waste. There's a very complicated formula. It's supposed to say which waste from which reactor goes first. Uh-huh. Put that in the political mix and see what happens. So, any way you turn, it's a problem. The only thing to do with this waste is keep it right where it is. Well, the only thing to really do is stop making it, but keep it where it is. Make sure it's safe. There's something called dry cask storage. So you keep it there and you monitor it for the next how many years. And the community knows it's there and everybody's careful about it. And you don't let anything happen to it and you protect it from terrorists and it just sits there. It's a prime example of one of the terribly wasteful ways we've run this society and we're getting our energy. And I don't know, has anything I've said
Makes sense?
given given you something to think about?
Well, actually, here's one thing I do want to ask you, right? You've been
Sure.
around this fight, and actually, if you take a look at the closing of Indian Power Plant, it's actually, if you think about it, right, an activist success, right? You got involved, you fought for the legislator, you was there, like, on the ground, right? You was there while it was open, you was there while it was closed. So, whether people agree with your issue or not, right, you've seen the fights win, which is, a lot of activist fights, right, they lose, right? They're fighting the good fight. Right now, it sounds like you're in a tough struggle right now. I think that's going to be a difficult one to win right now.
Yes, it
This
is.
with the uranium mines, right? I don't hear a lot of talk about that. So what are the most effective things that you think activists can do? Other people watching this, they're from all, you know, branches of activism, this, that, right? You've one of the OGs right here. You got to see, right? This is a big fight right here, and people should look up
It
Indian Point. It's
is
a real thing.
huge.
You know what I mean?
It's
Yeah,
huge.
it's
It's our
historical.
energy
It's
future.
historically significant. Yeah,
Yeah,
they don't
it's
teach
our
about that
energy
though.
future. It's our energy future, and are we really going to be able to cut back our carbon to keep this planet as we know it? Climate change is just huge,
So what do you
and
think? Earlier you said that let's talk about a solution, right? You said there's a cheaper solution. Is it the
yeah,
natural gas or is there other What is this? What are the cheaper solutions
I
then?
can tell you the magic solution right now. I don't know that people are going to want to hear it, but we have to use less energy. The the key to climate change is cutting down on the amount of carbon. And the key to cutting down on the amount of carbon is, first of all, generating clean electricity. But second of all, it's using less. And we are doing that. This whole American idea of more, 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 more is deadly. I think that's a good way to classify it. We can't just keep producing more and more and more. The planet won't sustain it. So there are a lot of things. Look at your studio. It's beautiful. And it takes a few kilowatt hours of electricity. But it takes a lot less than it would have a few years ago because the equipment that you're using uses less electricity. People, designers and engineers have gotten smarter. And so it's using less electricity, not to do the same amount of work. I'm not saying we go back to the cave days. I'm not saying that we have to light candles. I'm just saying that our engineering has to be smarter than it is, and we have to pass things like zoning codes so that when a new building comes online, it is self-sufficient and it doesn't have to depend on the grid. And there are lots of ways to do that that are clean and cheap so that they're not paying a ton of money for electricity. And uh, they're not increasing what's called the peak load, which is where you get blackouts when everybody is using. California did something that was, I thought, fascinating. Their electricity, they have a lot of trouble there, and it's not because of the renewables. Beside the point. Anyway, they were very close to using up their capacity for electricity, and so what they did was they sent out a text message and they said to people, "Hey, look, right there on their phone. We're trying to avoid a blackout. Cut back on your energy use. Cut your air conditioners down a bit. I'm not saying burn up, but cut it back a bit for the good of everybody." And there were a lot of things like that. Air conditioning in California is one of the biggest. People did. People did, and they avoided what they call a rolling blackout. And everybody patted themselves on the back, and rightly so. They were using less electricity. And nobody died. I mean, nobody sweated to death. It was just fine. And I think there are a lot of creative solutions like that that we can do if you take out corporate greed and if you take out some of the people that are running things. I've heard it said that we have the best Congress money could buy, and I think that's true. There's uh, more than one nuclear lobbyist in Washington, D.C. For every senator. There are two for some senators. So, this verbal poisoning gets fed into their political thinking, and it comes up with legislation that is not right. I mean, you can talk about Joe Manchin and his dirty deal. Um, I don't know if you want to go there or not, but
That's one of the great struggles that real grassroots activists face. The fact is that they have a commercial solution and they're
yes.
making money off of the contracts, off of pushing, right, a certain industry, right, whether it's making money or not, whether it's a good idea or not, right? They convinced us all to buy it
Hmm.
for whatever
That's right.
reason, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And the thing is
I,
that, right, the only people that stand to benefit off this message are the people that we're sharing it with, the regular people. But Coke and Pepsi not going to benefit off this, so they're not going to run us on the news. They're not going to
yeah,
cover
yeah,
our
yeah.
issue.
And they
So,
give people who are making this legislation, they give them a lot of money.
yeah,
I mentioned Joe Manchin. He gets more money from the fossil fuel industry than I think any other senator. He's a millionaire because of the money that he has made with his family on several different kinds of fossil fuel, primarily waste coal.
hey, quick
But
question. You ever heard of
sure,
something called county committee?
which one?
County committee?
No, I haven't. Tell me
Okay.
about it.
So actually, right, there's something called county committee. It's the most local level of control of the Democratic Party. Listen,
Oh, the Democratic County Committees.
I'm not a big fan
Yes.
of the Democratic Party or the Republicans. I work with all of them to tell you the truth. I know what they're capable of.
And rightly so.
I know how they talk. I know
Hmm.
what their strengths are. I know who's doing stuff. I know myself. I don't right. I don't have to listen to a
Good.
news report. I know exactly. Yeah. I know who's strong in the game. I know what they're up to. Yeah, straight up. So the fact of the matter is that why was I saying all that? Like we can work with the these environmental issues right now. The we're at a unique time in history, right? Where the after the 2020 census, we have redistricting, and it looks like the power is going to change. I have connections in Pennsylvania, swing states like North Carolina, trying to set something from Nevada, maybe Minnesota. We could maybe get them to listen to us right now. You know what I mean? Out of all the times just before the general, right? The swing of balance is right there. And
Right there.
if we
Right
help,
there.
and if we can mobilize in a concerted way, so I work with public housing, I work with people with disabilities factor, if we can come with a set list of demands together and get the key candidates in certain areas, right? I'm doing a public housing event with a Democratic candidate from North Carolina, right? And this guy's running Republican here in New York City. So I'm not here to I'm whoever's gonna work with us and give us what we can give us. This guy supports public housing. His Democratic candidate supports the developers. Believe it or not. Believe it or
Ugh.
not. Yeah,
Oh, I believe it.
it is what it is. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I would love to actually work more with your organization and see how we can build a coalition for. We're just about a month away from the general. Yeah.
We are right on the balance of, I'm going to say, losing our democracy because of all of the people who have bought into simple solutions. 30% of the people in this country think that the election was stolen. And uh, it, there's no way you can prove to them that it wasn't.
Because
I
they don't.
really
Yeah.
followed that election closely. It was fair, it was honest, and more people voted. And the problem right now for Republicans, I'm going to say, frankly, is that they don't want all those people voting again. So we have to have a fair vote. And a lot of people have been tossed off the rolls. It's not fair. A lot of the laws that have been passed are not fair, and they impact people who are really busy with their lives. And like extended voting hours, that was a big deal. And so now, of course, that's been cut back.
Well,
You
I'm
can go
actually.
through
Yeah.
a lot of things. Anyway,
I'm
what were you
actually
saying?
fighting deeply against a lot of like the shenanigans and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like the on all the parties. And one of the ways is to fight back as county committee. Now
Yeah, the county committees.
let's pose that
Hmm.
I'm a corrupt governor. And let's pose that you're my corrupt lieutenant governor, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna leave now I'm gonna suppose election comes up next year, but I'm instead of waiting for the election to happen, I'm gonna leave office early. I'm gonna retire. Now
You're
instead
going to do what? I'm
I'm gonna
sorry.
retire.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
retire. So
Okay.
now, right, instead of there being an actual primary, right, there's a county committee select someone for a special election. You're selected. You move into your place, right? There's special elections had. You win against the Republican, of course, right? And now it's a way for us to install our people into power. Fully one-third of elected officials are appointed by this county committee. It's another way to
Hmm.
control who comes up.
Right.
Another thing they control is the judges. It's a very
Right.
powerful point of control for local control, party control, right? That also affects the state and stuff like that. And it's a cool thing to do. So there's something called Rep My Block, where we're trying to get together all these people in joint swarm county committee, and then just take over, right, as a people.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to gang up, and for the general election, same thing, same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hey, I'm very excited to meet you. Yeah, it's I didn't know how deep you were in the game. You know what I mean? I didn't know if we were just gonna be some young intern who really barely knew Indian, but you were. I'm actually 46, I think now. So I was there I was upstate though during that time.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, I was.
I would not have I would not have put you in that generation.
I am though. So I know about.
So
I
you've
grew up
been
with
around
Indian
a
folk.
while and you've been thinking about this for a while.
I like the environmental stuff, but I've just gotten too busy with other things going on. But with public
I know.
housing, they're trying to import a lot of these solar panels on the rooftops, but who's getting the contracts and who's getting the benefit of those solar panels? It's going to be the developers. So once again, we see a commercial solution where and whatever the solution is, it's always buy this product, always, because someone's
Yeah.
behind it making cash, just
Right.
always.
Right. Right. We had a I actually to my surprise, worked against a solar installation here near my neighborhood. They were cutting down 600 trees. Trees store carbon. It was a beautiful property that people had used for passive recreation. And there are other places solar panels can go. You don't need to cut down trees for something like that. And you don't need these huge, big solar arrays that the utility companies want to put in because that's their way of thinking. You know, they want centralized power. We need distributed generation, and that means that neighborhoods have more power over where the money goes and where their electricity is sold, and it's a stronger grid because everything does not break down should there be a problem in one place. You know, you've still got all these other little hubs that are generating electricity. But there's no money for the companies and the utilities in that model. So they're kicking and screaming to try to avoid distributed generation, and it's democratizing our electricity supply, and that we need to do that as a people. You
Do
know,
it. Makes a
yeah,
co-op.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. All of those things. Put solar panels where nothing else will go. We got plenty of parking lots and uh, mall rooftops and everything else, and use the electricity locally. We don't need all these huge big transmission lines. We need some of them, but not all of them. We have to start thinking smaller.
Do you
I
work
think
with
that's the
any
only way.
are you working with any other environmental groups right now?
I'm sorry.
Are you working with any other environmental groups right now?
Well, I work with Clearwater, which some of your people may know about it. Clearwater's a boat that Pete Seeger had built, and he's the one with his boat sailing up and down the Hudson River that saved that river and made it. He stopped the pollution of the Hudson practically single-handedly at a time, and so that's one of the reasons that the Hudson is a heritage river right now. And there are other groups. I'm working with Beyond Extreme Energy, and they are phew, those people. They're frontliners. They oh, I have to tell you what they. This is the second time they've done it. They went to the building where FERC. A lot of your people may not know about FERC. It's a federal energy uh, Federal Energy Commission, and they everything that has to do with energy goes through FERC, goes through this agency. So, and Beyond Extreme Energy wants to go from FERC to FREC, which is a federal renewable energy commission, which is what we need. And their last action was to take a 13-foot ladder and a big banner, and they had to sneak it past the guard station, put it up on the awning at FERC, and climb up and drop their banner that said, "Stop FERC, go to renewables." And they, that they were stopped. It was the second time they had done it, and they were not happy about it. And the guards were better. It's hard to sneak a 13-foot ladder past guards that really know what they're doing. But they were successful the first time, and they will be successful again with stuff they do. And it was a time when there were a lot of groups that were in Washington and D.C. asking for clean energy and better energy. And so, they went to the other groups and they cooperated and they got a lot done, even though if they didn't get their FERC to FREC banner dropped. But those people are on the front line of everything and working with indigenous communities, which are very unhappy with what's going on and the way they've been cut out of the energy deal. A lot of progress had been made, but now with this new IR, the what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA. It really hands so much power over to companies that just like we were talking, and it doesn't really consider indigenous and community people nearly enough. So, it's looking at all this stuff. You've got to be involved. You got to look at it, and you got to call your legislators and let them know that the voice of the industry is not the only voice that they need to hear, because the industry gives them money to run for a political campaign, but it's the people that vote.
Earlier, you identified a company called like Integra or something like that. Or who are the companies that are trying to cause most of the problems that you see right now in the environmental sector or in the nuclear sector?
Well, in the nuclear section, it would be Holtec, and their um, what they're trying to do with their decommissioning. They also want to build a new kind of a generator that's called small modular reactors. NuScale is a company that is the only company so far that has put forth conversation with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. All this has to go through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And they're the only company that has submitted, it's not an application, it's the beginning of a conversation that will lead to an application. And they're claiming, here's another bunch of lies if you want to hear about small modular reactors. Um, uh, it, the way they play it is, oh, you just make them up really quickly in a factory, you put them on a truck, and you take them to anybody's backyard. Now, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but not much. Not much. They want to cut down all the regulations about them. They're different. There are different patterns for using them. Different. They all don't require water as our bigger generators, nuclear generators, do for cooling. But nobody's ever built one. Not in this country. And you still get nuclear waste. The Union of Concerned Scientists just came out with a study that showed because of the way they're generating electricity and because of the way they're using the different substances, the waste is more deadly even than what comes out of larger reactors. And so why do you want to do this? Bill Gates has got one with these in cooperation with a university, and it's like, why? Why? Why are you doing this? Why aren't you just doing something that is safe and wholesome and good for the earth? Um, he's not doing it for the money. He had an interview the other day that said he was a little bit disappointed in the way things were going. And I
Yes.
thought to
You know, but
myself,
that actually
I've
brings up
heard
an
that story
interesting.
with nukes before.
This brings up an interesting point though, because you said that the smaller reactors, right, are not as good as the larger reactors. So that says that there's a possibility that there's some models that are better than others, right? Is there a country that's doing things better, like as in terms of, right? I know that overall you just don't like it because of the pollution that it causes, the ongoing problems 250 million years, and right, I don't know all the science right there, so right, I have to look into that more. But those sound like great critiques, right? Sounds like reasonable critique. But if there's better models and worse models, right? What are some of the worst ones? Is the U.S. like ranked really low as in terms of like the way that they take care of this nuclear stuff, right? I think that they have nuclear in Germany too, right? Or France or something. No, France doesn't have it, right?
No, I hear what you're saying, and there are people who really want to do nuclear research, and maybe that should be part of a plan. You know, my experience over the last 3, 4 decades with the nuclear research is everything's always just around the corner. You know, oh, we'll have it in another 5 years. Oh, we'll have it in another 10 years. You know, I haven't seen anything like that come to fruition where it was a commercial scale. And yeah, you can look. One really good example of what has happened with building nuclear plants. This is the old style, the big ones. Is in Georgia. There's a, a reactor there called Vogel, and it's I don't know $17 billion over budget and 10 years behind time. And that's been the story with all of their new plans because at one time it was this is the end all, this is going to be everything that we wanted. And that's what I have seen work out with all of the new so-called new ideas with nuclear power. Everything is a renaissance and this answers all the questions. And then, you get into the details and the engineering doesn't quite work and this is wrong and that's wrong. Westinghouse went bankrupt because of its involvement with Vogel. That's a 100-year-old American company. And um, I don't see any reason that it's going to be different with the small modular reactors. And companies like Holtec that are pushing this centralized interim storage want to do it so they can get it off the property of perfectly suburban communities that want their Riverview back and ship it to a place in New Mexico, in the middle of the Permian Basin, with all these oil drillings around. What could go wrong there? Um, and give them so that they can they can give them a reputation and let them really be first in the field, and then bring in the small nuclear reactors. They have one in the shadows. There's been a lot of talk about that. So, you have a company that is huge. It's got a lot of money behind it, and the chairman, Mr. Singh, plans ahead. And you can't say that about local government. You just, they don't. Politicians come and go, and nobody has a vision or a plan that lasts down the road.
What do you,
Even with your county committees,
what do you think is the solution to that?
to better government in this country.
I guess just more participation, more knowledge, more people caring about it.
Better education, people understanding that this really means something. And I don't, I think you could come right back to the media and the fact that I'm going to just be very blunt here. I'm going to say Fox News is a propaganda machine. And I have watched it enough to know how they do what they do. And you never hear an alternative. They take one thing and beat on it, beat on it, beat on it. And it gets drummed into people's heads. And a lot of the people that watch Fox News don't watch anything else.
You know what?
I, I
Are you?
truly think that a lot of those people are the 30% that would like Mr. Trump for president.
I've been in third party movements for like over 20 years, right wing
Hmm.
party, because I saw the Democrats as being controlled opposition a lot of times because I was doing work on the ground, right, labor stuff like that, right, sometimes environmental issues, and then we go to the actual meeting where they're supposed to vote one way and they voted another way, and we're like, what's going on? And it was very disturbing. So I decided to go Green Party, but then I found that a lot of these other things, like I know you're saying Fox News is bad, a lot of the independent media, right, also is the same thing. They have the same
Yes.
issues.
Oh
They're the
no. Yeah.
same. They're also, even the ones that are supposedly progressive, they're still also playing their little games, have their own little, like,
I agree.
circle
I
clicks,
agree.
you know what I mean? And things they report, things they don't. And
Well, we used to have something called the Fairness Doctrine, and that was Colin Powell's son. I don't recall his name. I just know he was Colin Powell's son. Was head of the regulatory agency that controlled that, and he worked very hard to eliminate the Fairness Doctrine, and he did. And it was right after that that we got all of this right wing radio that just took over the airways. And that's people put that on, particularly in the Midwest. If you drive through the country, that's what you hear. And they listen to it all day long. So if you hear the same thing over and over and over again, pretty much it becomes the standard. So we need some fairness. Rupert Murdoch's another good example. He owns the press and some TV stations and radio stations in the same area, which was illegal. But Nixon let him go ahead and gave him a waiver. Right back to politics because Murdoch had supported Nixon and on and on and on. So politics is a big part of it. I don't have an answer except to do
that's
what I
why
can
I just reach
and see
out
what's on
directly to
my
people
plate.
like yourself and then just make that connection myself without someone else to really serve as a filter. So I encourage my
Yep,
audience
got
to
to
do the
watch out for
same.
your filters.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and then we're going to actually just do it, right? Even my audience, even though this is just a way for them to get to know you. So other groups that I work with, and I don't think the Lucians would probably be excited to work with you. I mean, you have a lot of great critiques, but I know that there's probably other environmental groups that I work with that would love to work with you, right? Yeah, some of them are also skeptical about nuclear energy. And me personally, I can see both sides. So I can't say that, I think your critiques are, you can't argue that, right? You're creating this waste that creates 250 million years. some people talk about launching into space. You're still, right, whatever. And even if you don't launch into space, right, you can mess up. The things could like the spaceship could blow up and the radioactive waste could get spread over the Earth. You don't know what's gonna happen, right?
That's
So
right.
yeah, you know, I mean, you could really cause millions of deaths. You don't really
And
know. So yeah, it's she's
I
brings
know.
up great critiques right here. I can't really, but once again, right, technology, you know, there's always technology is always progressing, so people are trying to figure out new things. Also, what do you think about this whole nuclear war thing? I mean, look, I grew up
Um,
during the Cold War era. Now Putin says he's going to be using nuclear. He's ready to start using some nuclear, and I believe him. You know what I mean? And I don't really remember in my lifetime really this open people saying, right, I'm going to use this nuke right here.
I want to point out one danger here, and then we can talk about the
I'm
others,
sorry. Okay, go ahead.
nuclear warfare. No, it's just one. It's a real danger for people who are honestly working and trying to change everything and trying to make things better. When you step back and look at the big picture, it's really depressing. And I have found that lately it's even more so. So it's really you really have to deal with that. And my way of contending with it has simply been to say, okay, what can I do locally? And the other way that I try to contend with it is to say, okay, I've been around a long time. So let me step aside and let's some of these new people come along because I'm surely they have better ideas. We can't keep recycling the same old ideas. But activists have to take care of themselves. They really do. And that's it gets harder and harder to do, especially when you bring in this whole Ukraine war thing and all the lies that are told about, oh, well, we need to put this pipeline through because it's going to go to South Carolina and that'll help Ukraine. Excuse me? And just how does that work? you know, but it's calling out those kinds of lies and, but still being very concerned. I mean, I think the whole planet's in a really fragile state. What if Putin does drop a nuclear bomb? Where would he drop it? Probably on Kiev. Where else would he drop it? And whew, you know, what happens next after that? I mean, we live in scary, scary times.
You know, really, if you take a look at the way that the U.S. is supplying the money for the whole war, the Ukraine thing, Ukraine couldn't last on their own. You know what I
Right,
mean? So
right.
if I was in a fight, um, you know, I would, they could drop it on Kiev, but I would just look out to take out the real threat, and that would be us.
Well, I think you
If I
could
was
be
going to do
right
something
about
like that,
that. I
really,
I
just from a military standpoint, just like just looking at, yeah, I can't. Why would I do that and then let them get worked up, and then take a counter reaction, right? Yeah,
no, I hear you. I hear you.
listen, this it
I
needs to stop. Yeah.
and there's no way that I would say, okay, we have to let Russia run over Ukraine. There's no way I would say, okay, you can't give them any more money for arms. However, I think we have to do it with the knowledge that the industrial military complex is laughing all the way to the bank with all these weapons that are being made and sold. So, you know, every up has a down.
Yeah. So well, I hopefully my audience really enjoyed the stuff that you were presenting. You said you have like a website, Indian. What's the website again?
The website is indianpointsafeenergy.org,
Okay.
and
Do you have like any social media?
it. Some people in the group are. I'm not. I have to say I'm too old for all of that. I get bogged down in it. So, but there are people in the group who do social media, and there are a lot of people who are sane is another good organization to look up. They're on Facebook, and they're talking about having a nuclear power plant next to a school and also a gas pipeline. So people who want something on social media should go to them. I'm leaving the rest of the social media to you and to other people who are involved in that. And I'm just I'm here to talk. I'm retired now, and I'm trying to make room for other people to come along.
The county committee is a great place to join up. Yeah, we need
Yeah.
like 5,000 people to take over New York City. That's a lot, but in Nevada, you heard about the anti-establishment. The media never reports on it until after they accomplish it. You know what I mean? We're in the middle of that, trying to do that right now.
I
So that would be cool.
I hope you're right. I hope you're correct. Can I count on that?
Come to the meetings. I actually have a videotape. I have video of us doing it. So if you come out,
Okay.
yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Food and Water Watch is another good group. Let me give them a shout out because they were in the middle and the lead actually of exposing what Joe Manchin was trying to do with his dirty deal in Congress before that got blocked. And so Food and Water Watch is a great place to follow. They really want clean air and clean water for us all.
You got
So
anything
and
else? Yeah.
they have a social media component. And they have a very nice website.
Food and Water Watch. Actually, I am concerned about those things too. We don't have the right to know about so many things. They don't let us film on factory farms. They don't let us know if it's GMO.
Yes,
There's all
factory
this, yeah.
farms. Oh my
It's
goodness.
quite insulting. It's ridiculous. Yeah. They don't think,
Oh,
yeah.
I know something your audience might enjoy, just as a side of little kick. There's actually something that I watch on YouTube, and it's from Roots and Refuge Farms. And if you look up Roots and Refuge, you can find it. But it's about a couple who's doing homesteading,
Oh, I'm into that.
and they want clean food for their family, and she's got big plans. She's got over a million viewers. I mean, she's not a small time operator, but what a wonderful person that she is, and the way she lays out things, and the way she helps people, and the way she says, "Look, we can all grow some of our own food." So I really recommend that if you're feeling down and you need a lift, go watch Roots and Refuge and see how to plant a garden. People need to be connected, and lots of times people are not connected to where their food comes from.
You ever watch was it Self-Sufficient Me, the guy from Australia? Good day.
Yes.
That yeah. Oh, there you see. I watch those things too, for real. Yeah. My friend has chickens. I had a big compost operation.
There
Yeah.
you go.
I have earthworms right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
good for
So I
you.
I do I do this stuff too. Yeah.
Excellent. That's just excellent. I'm glad this came up.
That's
You're
cool.
doing what you
Actually,
can. You're staying connected.
we're trying to grow some food. You know, maybe we're gonna figure it out. Yeah. Make us more
Yep.
self-sufficient. Absolutely.
Yep.
We
Yep.
give away plants every 7th of the month, just so you know. Yeah.
Good.
Heck yeah. Next time if you're by New York City, one of the days I'll give you one a sword plant. Yeah, you know about those things? It makes oxygen.
Okay.
It's rated by NASA for creating oxygen at night. Yeah, it's cool.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
so
Well, it's nice
um
to see you smiling about all this, and I hope more of your audience will take it to heart. And you have to take care of yourself, and that's one good way to do it.
yeah,
My hands are never. I'm never happier than when my hands are in the dirt and I'm growing something in my garden.
it was me to meet environmentalists. You know what I mean? You brought up some good points about the nuclear energy stuff. I'm sure I'm gonna have further conversations about as time goes on. This is a magic time for us just before November, this general election season. So I'll try to put you in touch with some other people that we got on the 15th. We're
Okay.
trying to organize a meeting with
Well, this
nationwide
has been a
with that.
wide-ranging conversation. I really appreciate it. Lovely talking with you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I
Thank
really
you so
appreciate it.
much. Yeah. Okay, last question is, what can people expect in the future? You got anything coming up for them to look forward to? Now they're going to be going to the website. What's up?
It's hard for me to look past the election. Get out and
Okay,
vote and get your friends out to vote.
that's
That's
true.
vote, 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 vote. If if we can't elect decent representatives, we're in an even worse place than I thought we were. There are some smart people running, and there's some really stupid people. Should I mention a name? Herschel Walker, for example? Oh
Let them
my
know. Let them know.
goodness. Anyway, um, send postcards, make phone calls. I don't think there's ever been an election that's more important than the one that's coming up. So work on that. We'll get on the other side of that, and then we'll see what to do.
Cool. Thank you so much. It's been an honor. Have a good one.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah. Have a good one. Thank you.
Take care.
And that is a wrap. I'm done. So.